Okay, so we got a brand new version of Batocera out. This is version 37. So the last time I covered this, it was using 36, and that was a couple of months ago. So I'm going to show you how to format USB drive to get this up and running on your system. I'm also going to show you how to format and how to flash the image onto USB device, and go through a lot of settings in Batocera itself. So let's get into this. So let's go and grab Batocera Linux 37. So links in my description for this as always. Just download Batocera 37. So for this, I'm going to go to desktop, and obviously this is going to be used for a computer. So if we just download the Batocera image, that's the times86_64. Now, if you're going to be using Steam Deck for this, it's going to be a very similar process, but this is exclusively for a computer. I'm actually using a laptop. And next thing you're going to need to do is obviously a USB drive. So we need a USB drive to flash Batocera 37 onto. I'm using a Cruiser Blade 64GB by SanDisk, and it works just fine. So what I'm going to do now is just pop this into my computer, and I'm going to show you how to format this to get it ready. So once you put your USB device into your computer, to format it, what we're going to do is just locate it here. In my case, this is coming up as D drive. So if you just right click on it and left click on format, and I suggest on this one leaving the file system as NTFS. And if you want to give it a volume name, that's entirely up to you. Let's just type in, for example, Batocera. And I'm going to just go to start, and just leaving it to quick format is fine. So, OK, and it's going to erase everything which might be on your USB device. And format complete. So just press OK on that, and you are pretty much good to go with your USB stick. So we also need to download something to flash our image onto a Batocera. So for this, I'm going to be using the Raspberry Pi Imager. So links in my description for this one as well. And obviously I'm using Windows, so I'm going to just left click on download for Windows and just wait for this one to download. So once this has been downloaded, just going to open this up and press yes on Raspberry Pi Imager and just quickly install this one. And we're next going to run Raspberry Pi Imager. So we've now got Batocera, and what we're going to do next is open up the Raspberry Pi Imager that we downloaded, and you're going to be greeted with this little window. So operating system, you're going to need to choose, and just go down to where it says custom, use custom. And from here, we're going to look for the Batocera image, which is on the desktop just here, or wherever you've extracted it to. So if I just go to looking, and from here, I'm going to go to this one here and desktop. And here's my Batocera image. So double left click on that one and choose storage. That's going to be the USB device that I just formatted. So left click and then just go to the end and left click on right and press yes. And just let this bit do its job. So it might take a considerable amount of time, so be prepared for a little wait on this part. Okay, so once Raspberry Pi Imager have finished flashing this image onto your USB device, it will say SD card, but just ignore that. It's actually been flashed onto a USB device. Just press continue, and you can now remove your USB stick. If I pop this one back in again, you will now see that we got different folders on your Batocera USB. So we got boot, EFI, tools, and a .config. So that's it. So the next part I'm going to do is turn off my laptop, and I'm going to get my camera filming how to actually go through the process of entering BIOS and everything else to get you up and running with Batocera that you just flashed onto USB. Okay, so once you've flashed that onto your USB device, just power off your computer or laptop. And some of you out there might have a different way of getting into BIOS. For me, I'm using the Asus VivaBook. This is a gaming laptop. And to enter BIOS on this, I'm going to press F2 while simultaneously pressing the power button. And that's going to take me into my BIOS menu. So once you've gotten into your BIOS menu, generally it is an F button on your keyboard to enter BIOS. So it could be F10, it could be F11 or even F12. What you need to do is look at the manufacturer of your motherboard and take a look at which button it is you need to press to get inside of your BIOS menu. So in my case, on my ASUS, I'm going to be using this little segment just here, and this is boot priority, and you're going to have something very similar. So you need to change the boot priority to actually read first from the USB stick that your Batocera image has been flashed to. So for example, on my laptop, I'm going to just drag the SanDisk image to the top. So we now have got the SanDisk in first priority. So as soon as this computer now boots up, it's going to read from the USB drive of Batocera and boot straight into it. Now, another thing you need to be aware of with this is that sometimes it might prompt you saying that security has been enabled or it's been disabled. So in this case, on my laptop, if I press F7, this is going to take me into what's called advanced mode. And from here, you need to go into security. And under security, we go to secure boot, and this is going to be pretty similar for most motherboards out there using these BIOS settings. Just go to secure boot, and where it says secure boot control, I'm going to disable this. So once we reboot the computer, it's going to boot straight into Batocera. And just make sure, once you've done all this, just be sure to save the configurations. So in my case, I'm going to press F10 to save this. And OK, and reset. So we should now be going straight into Batocera. And as we can see, it's now reading from the USB device. And here we go. So this is the first process. You might have a little window pop up on the screen saying it's reducing sizes, that type of thing. All that's very normal and all that's good. And here we go. This is your opening for Batocera 37. So here we go, we are now inside of Batocera and you've successfully got this up and running. So next thing I'm going to do is just plug in my awesome PlayStation 3 controller and give it a few seconds to initialize. And as we can see, Sony PlayStation 3 controller connected. So here we go, but don't be fooled by this, it needs configuring still. So from here I'm going to press my start button. And I'm now going to go down to controller and Bluetooth settings. And my first option here is controller mapping. If I go onto this and just press OK, and it's going to say one gamepad detected. So what we need to do on this part is just hold down on a button until you get this menu come up. And we're going to just define each button on the controller to correspond with each one of these. So you're essentially mapping your controller to work with Batocera. So for example, it says East. So for East, it indicates it needs to be an action button, say on the right hand side. So I'm going to press circle. South is obviously going to be X on my controller. North is going to be triangle. West is going to be square. And just go on and on with this process up until you get to the bottom. So start, select, D-pad, up, down, left, right. Left shoulder is going to be used by my bumper here, and right shoulder again. Left analog up, left, right analog up, left. Left trigger is going to be my back button here, and my right trigger is going to be this one. And left stick, now left stick press is going to be actually pressing down on the analog controller, and same for the right stick press. Now hotkey, pay attention to this because the hotkey is the button we're going to use to exit games once we're fed up with them and we want to move on to something else. So for this, obviously use a button that you've not yet used whilst configuring your gamepad. So for this, I'm going to just use the PS button in the middle, and that works fine for me. So let's just back out of this controller and Bluetooth settings by pressing circle. Now, there is other things we can do with this, and I'm going to get you the best experience you can. So first of all, we need to go to Scraper, and we need to sign in with our screen scraper user ID and password. So if we go to Scraper settings, what you need to do is go over to the screen scraper website and you need to register with them, which is absolutely free. Once you've got your username and password, you just pop it into username and password. Now, I'm going to show you how to really make this look really awesome. So we're going to customize the way this looks through using different themes. So if I go into the main menu and scroll down until I get to updates and downloads, from here we can go to themes. And it of course says we're not connected to a network. So we need to connect this. Now, maybe your Windows computer was connected to the internet, but you need to remember that this distribution of Batocera is Linux. So it's a completely different ball game. So we do need to connect this. So to do this, we're going to go to network settings. And obviously I'm going to be using Wi-Fi. So just make sure this is checked to on. So once that's been enabled and you're restarted, the next job you're going to need to do is just scroll down to Wi-Fi SSID, and from here you can find your network. And you're going to need to enter your passwords, which you can do under the Wi-Fi key. And once you've done that, just go to back. And you should now get Wi-Fi enabled. So let's just go back to updates and downloads and go back into themes. And here we go, we're now connected to Wi-Fi. So as I was saying a minute ago, we're going to make this thing look really cool, or just how you want it. So underneath this section, you have got a lot of different themes. Personally, one of the themes that I really like for this is Artflix. So to download this and install it, I'm going to just press X on my controller and install. And we can now see downloading in the top right hand side, and there's a little bar which now begins to move across, and you can download as many of these themes as you want. The Star Wars theme is particularly good. Now there is a very good theme just here. It's pretty sizable. This is A Touch of Glass, and I highly recommend that one. But if you scroll through here, there is tons and tons of themes. Some of them is going to take longer to download and install than others. For example, we got a tiny little theme just here for 109 megabytes, so that will take seconds. And whilst we're downloading the Artflix theme, which I've just selected, if I go to the bezel project, we can actually download bezels to make our games look good. So rather than having the black bars on the side of some of the games, we can actually have, say, for example, Commodore 64 logos on the sides, or say Game Boy Advance, that type of thing. And under Content Downloader, we got lots of different options here. We can download additional bezels with CRT effects, so lots of shaders going on. But I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm going to just, for now, download the theme, which is Artflix, and just show you how to install it. Okay, so once you've downloaded your theme, it will say at the top, extracted, that type of thing. What you need to do is go into the main menu, and again, I'm pressing start on my PS3 controller. If we just go down to user interface settings, the first option you're going to see is theme set. And here's the Artflix I've just downloaded, and it's been extracted. So I'm going to press X on that to select it, and press circle to back out. And here we go. This is Artflix. And as you can see, this is a lot better than the standard default theme. Now, once you've got your theme installed, we can define this and we can make it look a lot better, or how you want it. So we're going to go back into main menu, and from main menu, go back to user interface settings, and we can go to theme configuration. From theme configuration, you have got a ridiculous load of options here to play around with. And if at some point you think you just want to go back to how it looked to begin with, just to start fresh, if you scroll to the bottom to reset customizations, that will take you back to how it originally looked. So let me just go through a few things with you just to get you up and running. So for example, theme configuration, we can change the theme system view, and I'm going to go to random fan art background. If I select this one and go back out by pressing circle, we can see now the theme is slightly changed. And I didn't mention that this distribution of Batocera actually comes with some games loaded onto it. So under ports, we got a really awesome port of Doom. We've also got some sort of Bomberman game, and Prince of Persia, and even a Super Mario War game. And this is the same for other systems here. So if we go under Game Boy Advance, we got a Game Boy Advance game, looks like a homebrew game. And Super Nintendo, we got Classic Kong. Nintendo NES, we got some kind of basic numbers puzzle game. TurboGrafx has even got a couple of games pre-installed. Commodore 64, which is one of my favorites, has got Fix-It Felix Jr. installed. Sega Genesis is obviously Sega Mega Drive if you're in Britain, and we've got a Mega Drive game here. I'm going to boot this one up. So if I just press X to enter a game, and I've disabled sounds on it just for the purpose of this video. You should get sound. So here we go. This is All Towers on the Sega Mega Drive, also known as Sega Genesis in North America. And this game is a very cool game. I like this one a lot. So anyway, what we need to do to exit games is, if you remember just a minute ago when we was configuring the controller, I mentioned the hotkey. So if you press hotkey, you can exit this game, and that takes us back into the Batocera menu. So to enter into a menu to see your games, we're just going to press X, and to exit out, we can press circle. But whilst you're inside one of your game folders, if you press one of the buttons which you've defined, we can actually scroll through each system individually like I'm doing just here. So let me show you some other things. If we go back into main menu, and we go to updates and downloads, if we go to the bezel project, I'll say a minute ago, we can actually install additional bezels for our games. So to do this, all you need to do is just go to, say, Game Boy Advance or even Mega Drive. I'm going to download Mega Drive by pressing X and install. And this is now downloading a bezel pack. And if we go back to updates and downloads and content downloader, there's lots of freebies here you can also download, which is lots of extra bezels and shaders. So it's going to be the same process of just downloading it by pressing X on your controller or whatever button works for you, how you configured it. So for example, I'm going to download Batocera bezels with a CRT effect. So for those of you out there who likes things like scan lines, that type of thing on your retro games, then something like this one will be good for you. So I'm going to show you how to actually enable this type of thing. So I've downloaded it for the Mega Drive. So if I go into Mega Drive, I'm going to start playing around with how the games look. So we've seen All Towers play a minute ago just by default. If we press select or whatever button you're using to go into view options, we go to advanced system options. And from here, we can change cores. So say you've loaded a game into Batocera and it's not working, then you've got different cores or say emulators to play with here. Just leave this on auto though, that's normally good to go with most games. We got video mode, and obviously auto is good, but if you've got a different video mode on your screen, then just pick the appropriate one just here. And game aspect ratio, so as you've seen a minute ago, this was displayed in 4:3. We can stretch this to 16:9 to give it a full screen. Game rendering and settings, if we go to shader set, we got lots of different shaders on this section, or known as filters, to make the games look a bit different. I personally like the enhanced shader set. And smooth games bilinear filtering will blur our games. So I'm going to put this one to on. And integer scaling, pixel perfect. So I'm going to also select on this one. Our decorations, if you notice a minute ago when I was playing the Genesis or Mega Drive game, we had the Mega Drive bezels on the sides, or known as decorations. I can disable this one by pressing none, or you can select a different type of bezel or decoration. So now I've put all those different configurations into place, I'm going to just back out of here and go back into this All Towers game. And it should look different this time. And there we go. So the decorations or bezels on the sides have gone. And here we go. So it looks a lot better, not so pixelated as you can see, a little bit more blurred. And like I said, I do have the sound disabled for this video. Okay, so let's exit back out of here by using the hotkeys. And should you end up in the main menu for RetroArch, and remember RetroArch is the backbone of Batocera, what we're going to do is just go to quit RetroArch, and that's going to take us back into Batocera. So a lot of you out there, you're going to be thinking, I want to add my own games, and you can really easily do this. So if I press F1 on my keyboard, that's going to take us into this. And from here, this is very simple to set up. You're going to need to connect a USB drive with your games on it and also some BIOS files. So to add our games, what we're going to just do is connect a USB device with your games on it. And if we go to ROMs just here, this will highlight every system that Batocera 37 supports. So what we're going to do, for example, is go to Amiga 500. And if you've got an Amiga 500 game, what you're going to do is just connect to your USB device, select your game and copy and paste it into the correct folder. So something like Amiga is also going to require Kickstart ROMs, that type of thing, which you can get over on Amiga Forever. Other systems such as Mega Drive or Master System will require no BIOS. So if you've been following my RetroBat setup guide, you'll notice there's quite a similarity here with RetroBat, and it works very much the same way. So other thing you need to pay attention to is the BIOS folder here on the side. So if you're going to be using Batocera to play games that require BIOS files, we go to the BIOS section here, and pretty much just a case of dragging and dropping your BIOS files in here. And I'm going to show you which BIOS files it requires in a minute, which is very similar to RetroBat. And if we go to Applications, we can set up various emulators here to get it up and running once you dragged your games into the ROMs folder and the BIOS folder. So for example, if I just open up DuckStation emuconfig, we can now add our game directory just like we would on the standalone version of DuckStation. And if we will exit out of here, we just go to System and then go to Exit. And very similar for things like RPCS3, which is a PS3 emulator. Now, just bear in mind, if you've got a weak computer, things like PlayStation 3, PS2, and even GameCube and Vita aren't going to work. So make sure you've got some good specs to get these games running. We've also got Xenia, which is an Xbox 360 emulator here. So for RPCS3, which I've just selected, it's just a standard process of installing your firmware, that type of thing, as it says at the bottom, missing firmware. And you can set that up or use my guides on getting you up and running with RPCS3. So let's just exit out of here. And to exit out of this menu and go back to Batocera, if I go to the File option at the top and close Window, that's going to take us back to Batocera. Now, I was saying just a minute ago about Batocera looking for BIOS files that it's going to require to run games which require BIOS files. So to do this and do a BIOS check, if I just press Start to enter the main menu, if I go to Game Settings, Missing BIOS Check, and enter into that, this will give you the entire list of what Batocera's asking for in terms of BIOS files. If you want to scroll through these quickly, use the cursor on your keyboard, which will make it scroll like I'm doing right now. And we've also got under the game settings option, retro achievement settings. So of course Batocera, just like RetroBat and RetroArch, all accept retro achievements. So you need to sign up with retro achievements, which is free, and of course enable this and then enter your username and password. And this is a very cool feature nowadays with these retro front ends that we're actually playing a game and we get a little pop-up saying something's been achieved. So that's a real cool feature. And we've also got under main menu, Kodi Media Center. And of course, Batocera actually supports Kodi. So I'm going to just go into this. I'm not going to cover this in depth. I did a tutorial a little while back on RetroBat, and it's going to be the same process for Kodi on Batocera. So Kodi is a media center, and you can find more about that on my RetroBat Kodi setup. So to exit out of here, I'm going to go to the power button, and I'm going to go to exit the Batocera. Now, every now and again, every couple of months, Batocera gets new updates, which is why I'm doing this video today. So just make sure every now and again, if you go down to updates and downloads, just check that update type is on stable. Beta can sometimes mess things up, so personally I stick to stable. And if you go to start update here, it will search if it's got any updates. If there is an update, it will say update and install it, so just go ahead and install that. Now we've also got sound settings too under the main menu, so lots of different options here, just like when we was playing about video settings a minute ago through our Mega Drive game. And that's it. So I'm going to turn this off, and what I'm going to do is show you how to go back into BIOS and enable Windows again if you want to do that. So I'm going to go to quit, and I'm going to go to shut down system and really shut down, yes. Okay, so rather than just leaving you in the dark and you're going to take your USB stick out to try and go back to Windows, it's not as simple as that. We need to go back into BIOS settings and just change the boot priority. So first of all, I'm going to take out my USB stick and I'm going to go back into BIOS settings. So again, I'm going to press F2 on my keyboard and the power button simultaneously. And like I say, this will depend on your motherboard manufacturer. So in most cases, F10, F11 and F12 whilst you're booting your computer. So as we can see here, because I've moved my USB drive of Batocera, we've only got Windows Boot Manager, which is my hard drive with my Windows operating system on. But remember, from here we need to go to advanced mode, and we also need to go to security, just to go to secure boot and enable secure boot control. So if we enable that, and what I'm going to do is press F10 to save this configuration and press OK, and your computer or your laptop should now boot straight back into Windows as normal. And here we go, we are now back into Windows and everything is fine and dandy. So that's it from my Batocera setup guide today. I hope I helped someone out by what I've covered today. Just remember to hit notifications for upcoming emulation and retro related content, and be sure to follow me on different social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. And also be sure to check out my new membership options. I can do customized videos to fit your needs. But until next time, stay retro.